talking about NLP. So there's kind of like the Tony Robbins side of things, where maybe it's a little overhyped.
A little would be putting it very mildly.
Yeah. And then there's the real science of it, because it is a psychology. So can you tell a little bit more about what NLP is?
Sure. Yeah. The funny thing is, I originally got into NLP through Tony Robbins, because I didn't know what NLP was. I didn't even know he was doing NLP. In fact, he learned NLP when he was in his early 20s, I believe, or maybe even late teens. And then immediately started teaching it, while he's in the training, and then eventually renamed it because of he didn't want to be trademark copyright or something. I don't know, but he changed his to NAC, neuroassociative conditioning. So there's actually some good stuff in Tony Robbins, but man, he's definitely overhyping. Is putting it very mildly, and also there's an aggressive element to Tony Robbins stuff, like I saw his sales pitch in person in a Unleash the Power Within workshop, where you walk across burning hot coals the first night, and then the second day you do all this stuff, and it's like 15 hours long each day. It's exhausting. And there's lots of jumping up and down and screaming to rock music.
Really. I've seen some clips. I've never been to one, but I've definitely seen clips of the Unleash the Power Within.
It's the power within is mania. That's what you're really unleashing within. It's intense. But then his sales pitch was the most manipulative, pushy sales pitch I've ever seen in my life, before or since. It was like 3 hours long, and oh man, it was so bad for his Mastery University, which is more the same. So anyway, there's a baby in that bathwater, but the bathwater is real dirty. And the baby,
that's a nice analogy.
Yeah. And the baby to me is the original NLP stuff, which is actually really good, especially filtered through certain people. So I really, I actually still do some marketing for Andreas NLP, a particular school of NLP that Steve and Connie Ray Andreas were responsible for. So they are out here in Boulder, Colorado. And years ago, they would host trainings with the original Richard Bandler and John Grinder. And, they wrote some of the initial books on NLP based on transcripts. But Steve was a chemist. He had a master's degree in chemistry and was really interested in psychology. And Connie Ray got a PhD in psychology. So they have a science bent, and they're both oriented towards therapy and parenting, sort of like the Jedi approach to NLP. Whereas there's some people in NLP who are like, let's use this to sell used cars and pick up ladies. And not that there's anything wrong with selling used cars or seducing people, but they tend to be more of the Sith school of NLP. Ethics be damned. Let's just get what I want. So anyone learning NLP should know that there are some different kinds of people in the community, and some have a stronger moral compass than others. But the Andreases are some of the nicest people on the planet. Steve has passed along. He was old, and I worked for him when he was heading towards that. But Connie Ray's still around doing her thing, and their approach is just so gentle, so kind, like really incorporates self-compassion to the max, or in working with someone else, like really caring deeply about the person you're coaching or helping. And so I was really, that was a healing balm after being in the Tony Robbins school for a little while, because I was really pushing myself hard, Tony Robbins style, and that burned me out really hard actually in my 20s. I was listening to that, and I started a business with some friends, a podcasting business actually, before anyone knew what a podcast was, because the first iPhone came out actually while we were running this big business. So we were way too early to market. And so we raised some money from a rich friend, $500,000, spent it all, didn't make any money within about 9 months. That was an exciting run. But from that, and from Tony Robbins, and from just burning the candle at both ends, and anxiety and all that stuff, I hit a wall, and I had chronic fatigue at that time, and I really needed something different. And I found something from Connie Ray Andreas and her sister Tamara Andreas called Core Transformation. And that is an amazing healing method. So core transformation starts with the idea that we have these different parts of ourselves. And sometimes those are in conflict. Like part of me wants to do this thing and part of me wants to not do that thing, right? Procrastination in a nutshell, or any sort of inner conflict. So, and these parts of us, they're kind of like running on automatic pilot in the background. Yeah, so I'll tell my clients things like, you don't have to put this on your to-do list to remember to get anxious, or, no, of course not, right? It just happens automatically. So that's where the hypnosis comes in. We're trying to change unconscious automatic behaviors. But instead of trying to override these parts of us, make them wrong or bad, cut them out, destroy them, smash them into bits, which is kind of Tony Robbins' approach to NLP sometimes. And many people just experience like, this is bad. I need to get rid of this procrastination or this anxiety. Bad part of me. Spank it. That doesn't work. Because it's still there. It's still part of you. It's like trying to cut off your arm to quit smoking. It's like there's going to be some cost there. Right?
Yeah, and you can find another way to smoke probably. So
yeah, right. Yeah, you'd be like, can you help me? Ask people on the street. But yeah, so instead of making parts of us wrong or bad, unconscious parts that are doing stuff we don't like, we approach them with compassion and love and a sense of, believing that there's got to be a positive reason for this. There's got to be a positive reason this part of me is making me anxious in a social situation, or it's part of me making me procrastinate, or whatever it is. And then getting to know that part of you by assuming positive intention, which is how we'd resolve any conflict with another person if we wanted to do that too. And asking this part of you, what do you want? Like, what are you really wanting through this? And then what are you wanting through that that's even deeper? Like getting to deeper layers. So anyway, you go through this whole process. It's actually a profound healing experience. Some people call spiritual, even if you don't have any spiritual beliefs, like similar, like if you take 3 or 4 grams of psychedelic mushrooms, you'll have a spiritual experience, whether or not you're an atheist, It's a similar kind of thing, but maybe not quite as intense or long lasting. It was like 5 hours at a time. But there's a similar, like, profound healing that happens through this. And so, like, I started doing this from the book. It took me still like 20 tries to get to what we call a core state in that experience. It could be like peace or being or universal love or stuff that sounds so cheesy, intellectually, but the experience of it is like, wow, like this is amazing. But then I started just doing that technique over and over again. That was one of the key things for me in getting over anxiety and depression. And it was really healing. And I think one of the big reasons is because when you get to those core states, like the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, it's just offline in those moments. And so you get these moments of relief, like, similar, I think, in the breath work. Like, you do enough of it and you get these moments of just like, oh, there's no stress happening right now. Which is how, the fight or flight response, it's evolved for short-term situations. There's a tiger, there's a lion, you see it, it's chasing after you. Okay, you lost it. Whew. Now it's time to chill out again. But in modern society, we get that turned on, just get stuck. The alarm gets stuck in the on position. And so when we have these moments where it's just completely off, however we get there, that to me is the beginning of that freedom from anxiety or suffering, or whatever you want to call it.
And so that's that's interesting, because just starting from talking about the Tony Robbins side of NLP, where it's almost sounds like his approach is the opposite of what you just described, where he's, and some of his books were helpful for me in the beginning. But it was more about kind of hyping yourself up. And
yes,
honestly, that's, I guess it's that same thing we were talking about. You're not really addressing the core of what's going on. You can hype yourself up for a little bit by doing some jumping jacks and
make your power move. It's like, make it move. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Yeah. That works for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, but it's literally fight or flight response. Like, it's literally just sympathetic nervous system arousal.
Yeah. You're using the fight or flight instead of balancing it out with the parasympathetic response.